And many times with the Chateaubriand, they will tie it back together like we did with the pork. You remember with the twine? Yeah. That's what you would get. Of course, you go to a nice fancy restaurant, a Chateaubriand, you might expect to pay $35 to $40 per person on something.
Just taking off all the big noticeable things. Sometimes I actually, with some of the fat, I like to leave a little bit of it on. If you take there's not much intermuscular fat in the tenderloin, so if you take off every little white piece you see, you're taking off most of the flavor from the meat. So we really want to leave some in it, and just make sure we get these parts off.
Do you folks know the difference, like when you hear about marbling the meat? For example, a New York strip steak is not going to be as flavorful as a ribeye, for example. Ribeye has a little bit of the fat inside of it, hence it's going to be a little bit juicier because the fat is what provides some of that flavor. So again, here it's exactly right. If you remove some of that stuff, then now if you're going to prepare it, grill it, and then cut it, you can leave a little bit of that stuff on. That'll be fine. For this application, though, we want it to be really nice and thick.
All right, I'm going to leave the rest of this here because it's not going to hurt us any. And we're going to give this over to Lou, let him take it back and portion it, and we can get on to making sauces. And yeah, what he's talking about with the marbling, that's when I'm talking about intermuscular fat. That's what I mean. And actually, that's what they use to grade meat. When you hear about something being prime, choice, or select, what they've done is looked at the primal cut of meat and seen how much fat there is actually in the muscle. And the determination of how much that is, select has less fat in it. Choice has a little more, prime has a little more. That's why prime beef has more flavor to it. It doesn't necessarily mean that a select piece of beef is worse. It just doesn't have as much fat. So depending on the cut, it's okay. If you're taking what is generally a relatively fatty cut, say the ribeye, and you go somewhere and you find it in a select, well, you're getting a ribeye without as much fat. It's still going to taste good, probably a little better for you, and you're probably going to pay $3 or $4 a pound less because it's select. There's this association that, choice is always better, prime is always better. Depends on your application and how you're going to use it. You just got to understand what those mean. And then, of course, when you get into the really high-end beef, everybody's probably heard of the Kobe steaks and made from Wagyu cows. And what they've done with those cows is they're trying to develop that intermuscular fat. And they actually feed them beer and sake and massage them every day. That's why the steak goes for about $100 a pound.
I have a question.
Yes.
Some people say the way you cut the meat can make it tough.
It can, depending on the cut.
Okay.
Now, with that fillet, we could cut it lengthwise, cut it crosswise, do anything we want to it all day long, and it's never going to be tough. It's the most tender part. It comes from right along the spine. It's a muscle that's never used by the cow, which is why it never develops, and it's soft. When you get into things like flank steaks, skirt steak, anything off the belly of brisket, then yes, you want to cut across the grain. Look at the muscle, and wherever the striations in the muscle are going, come across those. If you cut with it, then what you're getting is these long ropes of flesh.